again, YouTube. We are back again working on a customer car. This is I think it's a 2000 Civic SI. Customer brought it to me because it's kind of the first turbo car he's ever done, and he's definitely kind of stumped on how to do some of the stuff. So this car is kind of half finished. It needs exhaust work and some other small stuff that I need to do, as well as tune it. So I'm kind of just going to be finishing the car for him and whatnot. So I'll take you along for the ride and show you what we got going on this thing. Alright, so currently the turbo is held up by a coat hanger. Definitely not good. Yeah, we need to get this turbo actually attached to the manifold first before we do anything. So I'm going to be probably taking off all of this stuff, the manifold, everything, attaching the turbo, and then reinstalling everything. Some of you may say, like, who would attach their turbo with a coat hanger and all that stuff and kind of give this kid shit, but you know, like I said, everybody starts somewhere. I have no hate, but I mean, fuck, 8 years ago I was running around in a turbo CRX with PVC piping as intercooler piping. So I mean, whatever, you got to start somewhere. Alright, so I got this thing jacked up in the air so I can get under it, and I just peeked underneath the car, and this is the return line that was on it, which is way too long. They looped it, and this way too long. It's gonna back up the turbo and blow the turbo seals if it's ran like that. Also, this return line they welded into here is too low in the oil pan. I already warned the customer about this, so yeah, they should already know. And I got the return line off of the turbo, so now I got to get the downpipe off and the oil feed line, so I can pull the turbo off of the car and then reseal everything and get it all bolted back up. Alright, so now I got the turbo off of the car. I kind of just cut the coat hanger that was holding it, and there she is. So now I'm going to pull the manifold off of the car. Here, it's just a bunch of 12mm bolts that holds it onto the cylinder head. And then I'm going to reattach the turbo to the manifold so it's secured and on there and doesn't fall off and is bolted on properly. And then I have to figure something out with his downpipe, rerun the oil return line, and hook everything else back up. So I just pulled the downpipe off of the turbo so I can remount this thing, and yeah, there's a bunch of oil in the exhaust side of the turbo there, as you can see. Kind of classic, you know, seal failure right there, considering that oil return line was looped, and the oil was literally just, it had nowhere to go. So it was back feeding into the exhaust wheel of the turbo, and yeah, hopefully that's not going to be an issue once we sort this stuff out. I don't know, we'll see. Also, now I'm going to be pulling the turbo manifold off, and I noticed the wastegate had the top port plugged off with this vacuum plug right here, and that is a big no-no. You want to keep the top port of the wastegate open to atmosphere, otherwise the diaphragm will never open, and you'll overboost and explode the engine. Alright, so I got the turbo manifold and everything off here, and I got the turbo bolted to the manifold. The easiest way to be able to get at all these bolts and tighten them, the ones that go from the turbo manifold to the turbo, the easiest thing I do all the time is just take the hot side completely right off, so the turbo is separated at the hot side, and then you can get at all the bolts a lot easier. Now we're going to throw this frickin' manifold back on, and yeah. So now I got the turbo manifold onto the car. I'm going to put the downpipe on next, and I have to cut it short because on the way down here he scraped all the way through this flex pipe here.
Hello, YouTube.
Hello. Alright, so we got the downpipe off, and I cut it, and now I got the hole drilled for the wideband O2 sensor. Stainless is a bitch. You will ruin drill bits. Yeah, stainless is a bitch. It as soon as it gets hot, it hardens. So you have to drill fast on stainless. But now we got to weld the O2 bung onto the downpipe here. Alright. Make sure you wear gloves and a helmet whenever you're doing this. tacked. Alright, now we'll put the helmet on. Another good tip here is to put the sensor in the O2 bung when you weld it, because otherwise, ooh, that's not tacked very well. Let me tack it better. Alright, so you want to put the sensor in the O2 bung while you weld it, because the threads could actually get like deformed or whatever, and then your sensor's a bitch to thread in. Fucking mint. So now I'm fixing the return line on this thing and cutting the stainless braided hose to length. And the best way to cut this stuff is to electrical tape where you want to cut and then use a bolt cutter. That's usually the best way that works for me. You can use a cutoff wheel, but the cutoff wheel makes a mess and it doesn't work that good. Like I said, the best way I've done this is with the bolt cutter. It cuts it perfect. Just like that. So I just got the return line on. I'll show you here. Since I'm such a nice guy, I actually put the return line and redid the fitting into the pan higher up, and then just plugged off the bottom port where they had it ran initially. And then I got some new hose on there, and yeah, that should be all good now, and the turbo shouldn't be back feeding into the exhaust wheel like it was. So hopefully the seals aren't bad from it running down here before, and then looping, which was really bad like you've seen. So yeah, now I'm just gonna get some new oil in this thing, and then yeah, but every single coupler on this car was also loose. Like the coupler onto the turbo is the wrong size. I had to redo all these clamps here and then tighten every single one of these clamps because, like I said, every single one of them was loose. So yeah, they didn't really tighten these how they should have. Other than that, we got the exhaust on. The O2 sensor is in and hooked up. And yeah, we're going to be firing this thing up here in a minute. So we just got this thing fired up, and it sounds great. The motor is super quiet, and yeah, all seems to be good, no leaks. And yeah, I'm probably going to get this thing back on the ground here in a minute. Alright, so we got the car running, and now I have to hook up the wideband air-fuel ratio gauge. It was already installed, but it was not wired. It already has a boost gauge installed that is hooked up and working, but the way that they had the gauges powered was off of the headlight switch, and I personally don't like to do that because that means you have to have your headlights on every time you want to watch your gauges, and I think it's just kind of annoying, so I like to wire them to like a key-on switch. So I just go to the fuse box and I try to find a 12-volt source that is only on when the ignition is on, so the gauges will turn on when the key is forward. So I went through here. Hopefully you can see. It's dark in here now. But I went through and I grounded both gauges together, and then I ran the power wires for both gauges together as well. So now I have the ground running to the side here on this dash panel, metal dash panel here. So the grounds are together, and then the power wire is going to be just the power for the wideband, and that's going to power both sides, or both gauges I should say. I got here, like I said, I just soldered these all together and heat shrinked them. Power ground, and then there's one power for both gauges here. So now I'm going to run these to the fuse box wherever there's a switched power, and then we should be all set and the gauges should be working. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and we will see you in the next video. Probably going to be doing some injector installs. We're going to be putting a set of 550cc injectors into this thing and taking it out on the road and tuning it. So definitely come back for part 2 of this car here that we're doing. And till next time, make sure to hit the like button. It helps the channel grow, and subscribe if you are new. So thanks for watching.